This is our family photo of the four of us. And the joke was always that we were so poor that my dad used to use a bowl to cut our hair. So we all used to have the same haircut except for Jen. Jen always had ponytails, but the rest of us, unfortunately, had bowl haircuts. Just makes me sad because we were always so happy. We did everything together. Till the day she died, everybody was still friends and still together. We're all still together except for her. On the night of June 29th, my bedroom door was thrown open. My boyfriend and I were sleeping when the men came through the door with the flashlight and gun pointed at us. My daughter's crib was right there. They turned into the room. The gun was pointing at the crib. At which point I panicked. I was like, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? I remember saying that. What are you doing? Why do you have that near my daughter? And he was like, get up, get out of bed. We want everybody downstairs right now. Like, holy heck, who's running through my house? You know, what is this? Nobody was allowed to talk. They made my whole entire family meet in the living room. And they had my dad at gunpoint. It was like a scene out of a horror movie. Like you see this stuff on TV, but never do you live it. And we lived it. I didn't know if it was a robbery. No clues. They did identify themselves as Bethlehem police officers, but when you're awoken like that, till you start understanding everything that was going on, you didn't know too much. There was, I think, 3 detectives were there. Many uniformed cops were there. And they had my house surrounded. They just told us something had happened and Jen was involved and they needed to gather information. So we sat in the living room for a long time, just asking questions like, you know, who were you with tonight? You know, what car did you drive? My mother was at work. The only one who was missing that night was my sister. It was horrible.
June 29th, well, it was a regular day for me. I got up and I went to work. I worked at the Bethlehem Steel, and then I had a part-time job tending bar. When I got home after bartending, it was late at night, probably around 2 o'clock. I didn't see my wife's car, so I figured she went to work. I was assuming that all my children were home when I got home. I wound up falling asleep on the sofa. I was woken up with 45 at my head. There was 3 cops with their guns drawn, pointed at me. Then the one went up through the house, got up the kids. They all came down. My wife's not there, or my daughter, Jennifer, and I said, there's something going on. What's going on? I said, well, my wife's supposed to be working. I don't know where my daughter's at, because I got home at late, and I'm assuming she was in bed. It's a weird feeling. You're frantic. We asked where Jennifer's at, and then they finally come and told us that she was killed up at the lookout, but they didn't say how or why. I was very confused. There's a panic in all of us. We were kind of like dumbstruck, really.
June 29th, 1995, I remember that my wife and I were sleeping and my phone went off and I was notified that we had a homicide up at the Lehigh Lookout. The Lookout is a very scenic area that overlooks the city of Bethlehem. It can be a draw for young people, teenagers, to just sort of hang out. It's secluded. When I pulled into the Lookout, the police were already starting processing at the crime scene. My first step was to stop to talk with the coroner. He was able to tell me that there were two victims. The first was a young girl who was laying face down on the other side of the wall where you might sit to look out over the city of Bethlehem. She had a gunshot wound in the back. There were some fast food stuff on the wall which suggested that she probably was sitting there at the time she was shot. I walked down the hill a little bit. It wasn't very far where the sports car was parked. In the back seat was another body of a young girl. And the theory was, based on the blood droppings and also where the gun casings were left, that it appears she probably ran from the initial point bleeding and then probably tried to get in the car to get away, perhaps, or to protect herself, lock the doors, and then probably died in there because of gunshot wounds. This is a photograph of Mary and Jennifer. I haven't seen this photograph for a long time, and it's very sad. I remember looking at the autopsies of these two girls. I mean, they were just so young, you know, and seeing them on a slab with bullet wounds, it's really tough to take. I don't think that there was any working theory at that time, but when I see people shot in the back, essentially, that means they were ambushed. The ballistics showed us that there was only one firearm for both victims, which suggests one shooter. Homicides are personal. They usually have some kind of motive. And we were concerned that here we were in an isolated area with two girls who were young, 17 and 15. And we're thinking, is there somebody in these forests, in the area, you know, with a rifle, with a gun? We really did not know. And we were very concerned about the possibility that we had a killer that was out there just randomly shooting people.
This was Christmas a few years ago with my husband, Carl, myself, and my 4 children. Back in '95, things were pretty good. Everybody was healthy and happy. I worked with children with disabilities. I'd spend the night with them, get them up in the morning, dress them, give them breakfast, and make sure they got off to school. I think it was 5:30. I heard a knock at the door. I was thinking, who's knocking at the door at 5:30 in the morning? I just remember my heart beating very loudly. And I went to answer the door. And when I opened it, my husband and my coworker were standing there. I could see they had been crying. I don't know why. I said, just don't tell me something happened to my Jennifer. And that always bothered me because I would have been just as concerned if it was Melanie or my boys. They kept shaking their heads. They wouldn't say. I thought maybe a car accident. And I said, all right, Carl, let me get my purse and we'll go to the hospital. And Carl just looked me right in the eye and he said, no. He said, somebody murdered our daughter. No, somebody murdered our baby. My friend told me, she said, you could have heard you in the next county. You kept screaming and screaming and screaming, murdered, murdered. We went to police headquarters and we walked in there. You could have heard a pin drop. There must have been 5 or 6 officers at their desks. Nobody was saying a word. I kept saying, well, what happened? What happened? Nobody would answer us. We were fingerprinted. They told us to sit down. Still, I didn't know what happened. Carl didn't know what happened. It was a very hectic day. I didn't see Jennifer except when she came home from work and we bumped into each other and she asked, "What's for supper?" Well, there was no supper that day, so this is why I said to her, "I'm just going to have to give you some money and you'll have to pick up some fast food or something to eat tonight." And I said, "You may use my car." Right away, her face lit up. We were just getting into the car to go when Jennifer looked out and she said, "Mary," she said, "do you want to go with me and go get something to eat?" Mary was our neighbor. She lived across the street. Jennifer's like, "Come on, I have my mom's car." And that's how she ended up going in the car. They drove me to work and they dropped me off. Jen came in the house with me. I said, "I'm going to give you $10 to get something to eat." And I gave her all the rules and regulations about the car, the curfew. She goes, "Mommy," and she just put her arms around my neck and she said, "I want to tell you, I love you. I love you, Mommy." I said, "I love you too, but Jennifer, I'm not giving you any more money." And go. I have to go back to work. And that's the last time I saw her. Within an hour, the incident happened and they were dead. I was sitting there waiting. I kept thinking, oh my God, I gave her the car. She was in a car accident. They're young, they're girls. Were they raped? And an officer came out. He knew us. He said, "I know these people. They're my neighbors." He said, "Those were good girls. These are good people. I'm going to tell you what happened to the girls." He said they were both shot and killed. Everything just went blank, and I was like a zombie. It never crossed my mind that they were shot. They didn't elaborate on much. They told us we could go home and they would get in touch with us.
After we left the police station, we still didn't really know what happened. You call the police station every day and you get basically the same answer. "We can't give out any information because the case is pending." I read the newspaper. It told us that there was a murder-suicide, and they were saying Jennifer shot Mary and then killed herself. And it really upset me knowing my daughter, no, that ain't her. And it really pissed me off, per se, that they wrote something like that. I was enraged. I was a mess. I just can't describe what goes through your mind. To me, the news media sucks because they were trying to pick the worst out of my daughter. No matter where you went, the media, they were there, the people knocking at your doors. You can hear so much about your daughter, and then finally it gets to the point where you want to pop somebody. This is when I finally went out to greet all the reporters that were standing around the house, looking for answers. Well, they were outside, they were calling, they were knocking on the door, asking for interviews and stuff. And I just finally said to my wife, I guess it's time somebody's got to go out. So I guess I'm the one. So I went out and approached them. Well, to me, it was, first of all, it's like an overwhelming thing to have all these people here. But it's frustrating because Joe here's asking a question, and this guy's answering a question, and other guy's asking a question, They have microphones and, so they can hear you. They're shoving it in your face and stuff. And it wasn't the best of times talking to them. But I had to do it. They said Jennifer owed a lot of money to people for drugs. And really, that upset me because she wasn't into drugs like they said that she was. They even come up with she owed somebody $500 or something. And I said, no, I don't believe so. And I showed her that she had more money in her bank account than I did. So I knew it wasn't drugs. She's dead, but why? They wanted to know. And I said, we don't know. I said, that was it. I couldn't do no more. And I went back inside.
Was it somebody didn't like her? Was it meant for me? I asked myself that in the beginning many times because we look so much alike. Was it meant for me? The cops made me to believe that I should just be extra careful because they didn't know. They didn't know if they were coming after the family. I was followed by a police officer. They sat outside of our house. They followed me to work. I looked over my shoulder. The cops questioned my friends. They questioned my neighbors. They questioned everybody. You started blaming your family members. You started blaming cousins. You started blaming your friends. My mom started blaming my dad. My dad would blame my mom. I didn't know if my dad did it. I didn't know if my mom did it. It was horrible. You see this on TV. You don't see this in a little town of Bethlehem.
There were lots of rumors going around that this was a killing because one of the girls owed drug money. We never really established any of that. They were pretty much average high school kids. We did a lot of background work on both of them. We came up with nothing to suggest that they were involved in anything other than normal teenage activities. These are two young kids, 15, 17 years old, minding their own business, sitting on a wall, enjoying a summer evening, eating French fries and drinking a soda. And someone shoots these girls from behind, and no one can say why. We really did not know, and we were very concerned about the possibility that we had a killer that was out there just randomly shooting people. Do we have a serial killer? Do we have random shootings? There was a lot of fear in the area. My office got flooded with phone calls, so did Bethlehem Police. We normally try to put the community at ease by saying, there's no need to fear, but in this case, we couldn't say that.
When it came time to burying my sister, my mom just wasn't up to it. She wasn't up to picking out her outfit. She just wasn't up to, she went away on us. Mentally, she was gone. So I remember picking out her outfit. My sister was like a tomboy. And, everybody normally, you bury him in a dress, you bury him like that. And I'm not going to bury my sister in something she wasn't going to be comfortable. Because I knew she'd probably come back and haunt me if I buried her in a dress. I dressed her in her favorite outfit that she wore quite often. She had on her favorite pair of jeans and her vest that she wore. And we did her hair the way she always had it done. Sucked. I didn't want to pick out. I wanted to pick out her graduation outfit. I didn't want to pick out an outfit she was going to be buried in.
The grief, it took over me. I was more worried about myself, grieving, not worrying about my children at all, or my wife. I go up in my room and I just stay in there for a while, or I go up to Jennifer's room and sit there and ask her why. No parent should have to bury their child at all. We checked in with the police every day for a couple of weeks to find out what's going on. Every day we got the same answer. They still haven't found a killer yet. And then you say, well, when is this going to happen? It's just a waiting game.
I couldn't get any peace. I had no peace of mind. I just wanted to know who did this. I did get the courage to go up to where it happened. That was hard. It was emotional. I kept visualizing what happened. There was a little car there, and two young men were there. And I said, did you know the girls? And they said, yes, they did. And I didn't recognize them. I didn't know them. I said, I was Jennifer's mother. I said, it's terrible what happened here. And then they said, yes, it was, and we're sorry. They got in the car and left. I didn't know who they were at the time. I just thought they were just passerbys.
Is it possible the girls knew their killer? I thought so. And the reason why I thought so is because generally, I go with statistics. Most time people do know. It's very rare that you have random shootings. So the odds were that this was in the circle of friendships of these girls. It was someone that they knew. That's what we thought. The very first starting point is family and friends. We started to trace the friendships of these girls. It took a lot of interviews. It was not easy, and it took the police months. There was a lot of people who felt that he was the guy we should be looking at. And he was one of the first people that we interviewed. He was not overly helpful. Not that he was necessarily lying, although we believe that there may have been some of that going on too. Very early in the investigation, he got in contact with a public defender who basically stonewalled the police in terms of trying to give any information. He sort of made himself look more guilty by doing that. Boyfriends do kill their girlfriends. But at that point, we had no evidence that he did anything wrong. It was just weird that he would, go to a public defender at that point. He wasn't charged with anything. He wasn't really being accused of anything. His name surfaced early as someone that was in the circle, but there wasn't any obvious connection between him and these two girls. So we came back to him again. He was 18, bouncing around pretty much on his own, staying at friends' houses, not working, didn't have a great relationship with his family. I called him sort of a drifter. He had had some crimes of theft and things of that nature in his background as a juvenile. So, we just really have a lot of information on him at that point. When they brought him in, he denied being at the lookout, never was up that area, gave some alibi that he was with two other young boys. We didn't have anything on him. We had to sort of put him off to the side and continue with the investigation. When you have an unsolved homicide like this, two young girls shot, and no one can explain why, there's no obvious evidence of motive, in an area such as this lookout, which is a secluded area, it puts a lot of pressure on the police and the prosecutor to try to solve it. We were working day and night to try to solve this case. It was a top priority. We have team meetings just about every single day. I would be down either in the morning, sometimes in the morning and the afternoon, for updates. Who'd you talk to? What do you think? Where's it leading to? And that's the way it went on for the summer. In early December of 1995, police investigators tell me that Mary's boyfriend wanted to reach out, that he had some additional information to share with the police. The boyfriend of Mary, Orlando, now is telling us that the victims were going to go meet Christopher Bissey that evening. This is important information because it puts Bissey, who's now, a suspect that we're looking at, in the presence of the victims.
So this is the outfit my sister was killed in. You know, somebody asked me the other day why. My daughter, Mommy, why are you holding on to that? I don't know. And I look at the tiniest hole, and how such a little hole can just destroy somebody and kill them. 27 years. And I dream about it, and I have nightmares about it. Like it happened yesterday.
The name of Christopher Bissey kept coming into our view. No one seemed to know who he was in relationship with Jennifer Grider and Mary Orlando. He was not a friend of theirs. It's not clear how the girls knew Bissey, but it's the only evidence we have. So we brought in a number of his other friends, so-called friends, who said, oh, when the news hit about the girls, Bissey was bragging like I was up there. I was the one who did that. A lot of these friends dismissed it as just bravado, and he was acting cool and acting tough, and they hadn't come forward right away. They're young kids, afraid for whatever reasons. They're going to get in trouble themselves, hanging around with the wrong crowd. One of them was the driver of the vehicle that Bissey was in, driving around with that evening. I think he was 18 at the time. And then we had another young boy who I believe was a little younger, maybe 15 or 16, who was a passenger. One of them, he had parents that I recall encouraged him to tell the truth. We interviewed the driver and passenger separately, and they gave almost identical statements as to what happened. The driver tells us that he's with himself, the passenger, Chris Bissey, driving around. At some point between 9 and 9:30, allegedly, Bissey tells him, you know, I want to go up to that lookout. He pulls in, he opens his window, he's looking around, and all of a sudden, he hears gunshots. And he sees Bissey with his arm out the rear passenger side window, shooting at a girl that was sitting on the wall, and that he expressed as being in shock, basically, that like he was in shock. Then Bissey gets out of the vehicle and walks towards the girl who was fleeing and shoots some more. He gets back in and tells the driver, let's go, we gotta go. According to the driver and the passenger, they then drive around a little bit more, and that they don't even discuss what happened. There's like silence about this, which is incredible. And then the driver goes home. And basically, as he puts it, tries to put this out of his mind. When they described how the shooting occurred, it matched where we found the casings, where the victims were. So they had to be there because no one else would know what it looked like except people who were there that night. I could have charged all three with murder, but mere presence at the scene is not sufficient to make you guilty of a crime. Without them, I would have no case against the actual shooter. The boy who drove the car and the passenger, they didn't have the gun in their hand. I want to get the shooter, the person who pulled the trigger that ended the lives of these two young girls. That's who I want. Chris Bissey, he's the guy who pulled the trigger. I felt strongly that we had enough to charge, and so we made the decision to charge Bissey in early December.
It was in the middle of the night, around 4 o'clock in the morning. And it was the head detective. And he said, Joan, I just want to tell you we made an arrest. I was like stunned. And I remember saying, oh my God, who was it? I thought it was going to be somebody I knew. I was holding my breath because I was scared to hear who it was going to be. And he said it was Chris Bissey, I said, I don't know who that is. I don't know where he came from. He didn't date Jennifer. He didn't date Mary. He didn't hang around with them. The detective said, I just want to tell you, it's out in the media. I'll guarantee you, in no time, they're going to be there. And they're going to be all over your house. They're going to be coming. He said, I would advise, why don't you go somewhere? So we did. I got the kids, I got everybody up, and we got dressed. When I came out, they were everywhere. They were, people with cameras and reporters with the microphones in my face. And did you know the person? Asking me 100 questions. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I had the baby in my arm and I fell. I tripped and I fell. I was a mess. I was like, let me out of here. Let me get in my car. And I just locked the doors and I left. Still, I didn't know what happened. Who was this Chris Bissy? Why would you shoot my daughter? My goal was to try to find out why he did it.
It's a picture of Chris Bissy after he was arrested. He looked like an average Joe. He looked young and innocent, but I guess he wasn't. I got to know what he looked like. I got to know what hate means. As far as I'm concerned, I could put a bullet in and shoot him myself. It's a picture of a killer. Nothing more, nothing less. A no good piece.
The first time I ever saw Chris Bissy was in the courtroom the day of the trial. I always said if you lined up 50 people, 50 suspects, he'd probably be the last one I would have picked. Because he looked bewildered, he was young, baby face. He didn't have that hardcore look that you would expect. Witnesses, they walked out and I thought, why do I know them? And then it clicked. Those were the two that were up at the lookout that day. It was actually the driver and the passenger is who it turned out to be. And that's creepy to think that I was standing there talking to them all that time. It was them.
These boys did not want to be cooperative. They were actually afraid of Bissy themselves. They didn't really want to testify, and we had to really, work on them and tell them how important it was. And one day there'll be citizens who will be able to look back and say, I helped the police solve a murder. The witnesses described that he started shooting from the vehicle and then got out of his car, walked down, and shot again the girl when she was trying to flee. Matched perfectly the ballistics. I would have no case without these eyewitnesses. I needed them. When I have to convince a jury, all 12 beyond a reasonable doubt, I'd like to give them a reason, say, here's why he killed this person. But we don't have them all the time. In my closing argument to the jury, I said, I can't tell you why. I can only tell you what happened. Mr. and Mrs. Grider live with this daily and the pain of it. And there's still unanswered questions for them. They want a reason. Yeah, they want to know why. Then it's up to the jury, 12 people. We don't know what they're going to do, and they all have to agree. It's not an easy burden beyond a reasonable doubt, and all 12 people have to come to the same verdict. It was one of the hardest cases I've tried.
The day of the verdict, I remember them saying, Christopher Bissy, we find you guilty of first-degree murder.
And I remember sitting there like thinking my sister should come back now. Like I remember looking to the side like, where are you? Why aren't you back here with us? Like this is all done. This joke is over with. Why aren't you here with us? And it didn't change anything. At the time, I wanted the death penalty. Like, he needs to fry. Let him die. But now, years later, I'm a mother. And I have 5 daughters. And people make mistakes. And you don't know if one of your children are going to make a mistake. So I'm very torn. Now I'm very torn. Who am I? I'm no better to have him killed. I'm no better. You know, we'll let God deal with it. He destroyed my parents. Because I do everything to make my parents' life perfect. And I can't make it perfect because I can't bring her back. So this picture was of my sister. She took the babies to the Philadelphia Zoo. So this was probably like 3 weeks before she passed away. It just hurts me that she's not here with them because she would be spoiling them like crazy. And every little girl needs an aunt, and she doesn't have that. She would be that aunt that every time I would yell at my kids would run over to her house and hang out with her and be with her. She was always a jokester. Everybody always wanted to be around her. She would have been the fun aunt. I would have been the mean mom and she was the fun aunt. This is the last known photo that I have of her. Chris Busy took so much from us. He doesn't realize how much he took from us. And to this day, I still want answers. I just wish he would tell us why. You know, so my parents could have some kind of closure.
I went to see Chris Busy. A lot of people did not think I should go. I did not go there to forgive him. I did not go there to excuse him. Just thinking that maybe something that he would say that I would pick up on. I walked in first and I sat there, then they brought him down. And I started crying. I don't know why, I think I was so nervous. I started crying and I just said, you have no idea what you've done to my life. I said, especially my husband. I sat there for 7 hours with Chris Busy. He never once said he was sorry. He never showed any, feeling bad for me or he just didn't care. And everything was denial. He didn't know the girls. He had no idea what happened. He just lied. He just told so many lies. He said, well, first I want to tell you something. I never knew any girls from Bethlehem. He said, I don't know anybody from Bethlehem. Lie. And then he got up and left the room, and I left the room, and that was the end of it. For 26 years, I've lived without knowing why. Unfortunately, I have lung cancer, and I'm facing a life-threatening operation. When all this happened, these were young kids. Well, I think there was a lot of teenagers that might have known what happened or what it was about. Now they're adults. Maybe they talk about it now. But doing this interview, maybe we'll get an answer out of it. Maybe somebody would say, after all these years, my conscience bothers me. I do want to tell you, or I do remember something. And if things would work out for me, then I'll have some answers.
He's still alive, where my daughter isn't. They talk about how they have such bad prison, the cells are bad and stuff. I don't care. I mean, they did a crime. They got to do the time. And like I say, their cells might be 8 by 10s, but my coffin my daughter's in is only 6 by 3, So there's no room for her. But he's still kicking, so. I come here once a week. usually Saturday mornings. Well, it's his Holy Savior Cemetery. It's in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It's special because my daughter's here. It's just someone I can talk to without being ridiculed, you know, like someone, oh, you can't say that or you shouldn't, you know. She just listens. Looks good. Imagine a relationship if she was still alive. It's kind of hard because I think about that all the time. What would you be doing now, you know? Or how many kids would you have? How many grandkids would I have? You know, stuff like that. I think about it all the time. It's always okay to cry around her. And I do sometimes. Sometimes I smile, sometimes I cry. But I'm there.
My home was a home full of joy, love, acceptance. It was your absolute safe place. Of course, there's my dad. He was just a wonderful man, salt of the earth.
They said a woman on average, speaks 28,000 words a day.
28,000 words a day.
An average. A man speaks 12.
My mom, Sylvia, went to college after she had me, and very intelligent, very smart, just beautiful, there was nothing she did not know. And just her walking in a room could make you smile.
And it's so much fun. And tomorrow we're gonna have more fun.
And my grandparents ended up living in my mom's and dad's house because they both were older. And my grandma had late-stage Alzheimer's, and my granddad, he wasn't in good health anymore. And then there's my little brother, Travis. He's 5 years younger. He lived right next door to us.
I had a really, really good time today. It was a lot of fun.
We were very happy. But I lost everything. Whatever normal I knew, whatever innocence I had died. And I became this person that looks like me, sounds like me, but not really me.
It's a photograph of Sylvia Reeves and a photograph of James and Evelyn Mitchell. Looking at these photographs, you know, they were taken obviously when they were living and breathing. And then the last time I saw them, they were laying on the floor, deceased. But that shows you how fragile life is and how quickly it can be taken by someone evil. I received a phone call around 2:30 a.m., February 13th, 2007. These calls only come that time of night if it's pretty bad, usually. There had been a shooting at the Reeves residence. I did not know the full context of the seriousness of it. I did know that there was multiple gunshot victims and the suspect was on the loose. First thought was, you know, who is it? You know, what's happened? And your mind's racing. Once I arrived at the scene, there was a sheriff's vehicle sitting there, marked patrol unit. Lights were not on. I was informed that the deputy sheriff that was driving that vehicle had been injured during a shooting. The deputy sheriff was taken to the hospital. I was told that Travis Reeves had been shot and 3 people were deceased inside the residence. And he did state to me that Randy Wathney was the shooter. I'd never heard of anything bad on Randy. no trouble with the law. So I think most of us were completely surprised. I had met Lisa Reeves earlier in my career. She knew some of the same people that my wife and I knew. I had met, actually, Randy Wathney at one time. You know, I'm just thinking, what happened? Why did this happen?
I met Randy Wathney in 1997. My friend and I went to a concert in Memphis, and I keep seeing this guy wearing a flight suit. And I kept telling my friend, he looks so familiar, that guy looks familiar. And at one point I went to get my friend and I a drink, and he was there. He was like, you kind of look familiar. I'm like, you kind of look familiar. And then we started talking backgrounds, and we realized, okay, yeah, we know each other. We went to church together when I was a kid and he was a kid. And I asked him, of course, why he was wearing a flight suit. And he said he was in the Air Reserve and coming off of doing his exercises that was in Fort Smith. We connected on our shared path, going to the same church. And I'm not going to lie, all women love a man in uniform. And he just seemed very charming and personable. He was kind. He was funny. He seemed like he had everything together. I wasn't looking for a relationship, but we started talking on the phone, and that was that. And then after about a year, it was Christmas 1998. It was the first Christmas that he had come over. And I noticed he brought a bag with him. He said, well, I thought I'd show y'all something a lot of people don't get to see. The gear that you wear when you're flying F-16s or F-18s. So he went and put the flight suit on, and he talked about being involved in the recovery of Black Hawk Down. So we were like, well, that's really cool. My parents thought he was smart, clean-cut, articulate. You want your child to marry someone who has a good job and a good future, and he appeared to be all those above. He said one time where my dad could hear, you're bigger than I am. You outweigh me at least by 30 pounds. That made my dad just so mad. It was the first time he'd ever really said anything like that. And so when he said it, it kind of caught me off guard. This wasn't an everyday occurrence. So in my mind, I was like, oh, well, he won't be like this forever. Because at the time I did love him. I thought that we were operating off a firm foundation. And so when he gets down on one knee crying, saying, will you marry me? You're like, oh, yeah, of course I'll marry you. We dated for 3 years before we were married and bought a house that wasn't too far, about 15 miles from where my parents lived. But I knew real quick, once you move in with somebody, that's when you begin to see the darkness that comes out in them. We lived together as, man and wife for all of 9 months. And it was 2 weeks after we were married. He just turns around and says, I'll never love you like I loved my first wife. And I'm like, first wife? Well, yeah, I've had 2 other wives. And plus, they were thin, you're not. And by the way, I have 3 kids. And I'm like, didn't you think maybe I should have known that prior to getting married? His attitude was very nonchalant, as if we're talking about what to put on the grocery list or how the weather's going to be the next few days. There was no emotionality in it. He didn't understand why I was upset about it. I don't really even cry. I'm just so taken aback. This is so wrong. There's no sense to this. What else is he lying about? And that's what led to me kind of playing secret private eye, trying to figure out how many lies this man had told me. This is my mama, Sylvia Reeves. I'm sorry. I just miss her so much. She was the kindest, most gracious, loving woman. And I'm sorry that I brought that man into her life to do this. He always had this briefcase he kept in his closet. And so he goes to work one day, and I just decided to get that briefcase out. And I got in it and started looking through, and I was just, wow. He was not a major in the Army. He was a sergeant in the Army. He never flew anything. He wasn't a pilot. I don't even know if he actually ever even saw combat. There was just pictures of this life I was unaware that he had. The amount of lies that he told was just, you couldn't keep up with them. And I did, after that, I did confront him. He got angry about it. He got defensive about it. He would basically say, what harm does a little lie? He was angry that I knew the truth. How am I going to trust somebody like that? I'm going to question everything he says to me. And that's when I moved out. I moved back home. For the first couple of years after I left, we tried to work things out. But then it became less and less. I wanted a divorce. He didn't want to give me a divorce. The night before my dad had his stroke, he and I were out on our porch talking. And he said, we've got to do something about Randy. He said, something is not right with him. He said, I don't trust him. He said, we've got to get you divorced. And then the next day, my dad has his stroke. In February 2006, we had my father's funeral, and Randy showed up. I told him, I said, please, for all of what's good, please sign the divorce papers. He said, I knew now that your daddy is gone, you still want to go through with this divorce. And I'm like, yes, as soon as possible. I spoke to him maybe twice in a span of a year, and both times he initiated it because, like most narcissists are, he's in control, you know, and his saying was, no fat girl's going to divorce me. That was his thing. And he was hell-bent for leather that that was not going to happen. I'm at home with my grandparents. My mom was at a church meeting. And she came home, I would say about 9 o'clock. I was in my room working. And she came into my room. And, you know, she says, oh, good night, I love you. And I looked at the clock and it said 12:47. And I hear something that sounds like somebody trying to get in a door. So I get up and I'm walking down the short hall to the back door of the house. And all of a sudden, here he comes busting through the window. When I saw his face, and an expression I've never seen before, he's got very blue eyes. They were black. It was like the blood just ran from me. I got a knot in my stomach, and for the first time in my life, I was scared to death. Then the next thing I know, he grabs my throat and he starts choking me and immediately pushes me down, and he's just pounding me with his fist. He's straddling me, just hitting me as hard as he can. I'm trying to fight back the best I can. And it just gets worse and worse, and to the point to where I'm like, he's fixing to kill me. I start yelling for my mom. And my mom finally appears at the door. And she's like, what are you doing? He starts cussing her. And she's like, Randy, this is demonic. And soon as she said that to him, he just raised his fist back and hit her. Well, when he hit her, I grabbed the very back of him and I pulled him off of her. And that's when he turned around and swung and hit me in the collarbone and knocked me probably 10 feet down the hall. When I hit the ground, my mom makes kind of a beeline for the kitchen. And he turns around to go after her. And that's when I see his hand go in his pocket. And my mom turns around at me and looks, and it's a look I'll never forget. It's almost like, get out of here. You don't need to be here. And, you know, I don't know if she saw his gun, but then he shoots her. And I see her go down. I just kind of left myself. I think my brain said, or God said, okay, she can't deal with this. So something else in me took over. I'm thinking, I've got to get to my grandparents' room, who are absolutely incapable of helping themselves. So I ran as fast as I could. I get to my grandparents' room. It's when I hear the second shot. Oh, these are my sweet grandparents, James and Evelyn Mitchell. He would walk around humming and singing, and, you know, he was a good guy. He was a character. She was the most positive woman. She always looked at me and she would say, love you more than anyone. They both were teenagers when they got married. They deserved a far better ending than what they got in life. They really did. I've got to make sure my grandparents are safe. I get in my grandparents' room and I close and lock the door. My grandpa's standing there, and my grandma is sitting up in the bed. And I turned to my grandpa and I said, he shot my mama. I think he shot my mama. And he said, oh no, he couldn't have done that. And then I hear him beating on the door. Pounding, pound, 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 pound. And suddenly it got real quiet. I decided to open the door, a crack, to look both ways. I looked down the long part and I'm like, okay, he must be gone out. I'm like, he's realized what he's done. He's left. And suddenly a voice told me, shut that door. If you go out that door, you're going to die. Close the door. So I shut the door and I lock it. And I look at my grandpa and I said, I've got to go get help. I said, I'm going to go to next door and have Travis call 911. And I remember looking at him and I said, I'll be right back. I said, do not leave this room. And I hop out the window still wearing my night clothes, no shoes, no socks. I run over, knock on my brother's back door. I'm, kind of frantic. Finally wake him up. And he's like, you get on the phone with 911. He gets his 380 and goes out his back patio door. But thankfully, my brother's 2 children are not there. They're with their mother. And then I get on the phone with 911. And I remember the dispatcher telling me, well, go out front and tell me, is his truck still at your house? And I'm like, yes, his truck is still here. Then I see something coming out the same window I came out. And I couldn't really tell because it's dark. And then all of a sudden, before I know it, no more than 20 feet away from me is Randy with the gun. And he's got it pointed to me, and I yell, Travis, here he is, here he is. And next thing I know, my brother and he are shooting back and forth. There's shots around me. Then I'm running. I start praying, the Lord's Prayer while I'm running and getting back into my brother's house. I'm in the house, on my knees at times vomiting, on my knees praying. And then I finally see my brother, his truck leaving out his backyard. Then I see his truck just drive off in a deep gully, and the taillights are just sticking straight up in the air. I mean, my brother was shot so many times, and he kept fighting. He kept fighting, and he tried to keep me safe. I'm thinking, is he dead? Then suddenly my phone rings and it's my brother. And he's like, Lisa, I've been shot. He said, at least 5 times I know of. A couple times in the head. He's like, something happens to me, you've got to take care of my kids. I said, I'll take care of your kids. I don't know if my brother's going to live. I don't know if my brother's going to die. Everybody around me so far has been shot. You look outside, you don't see police. You don't know what's out there. You don't know what's coming. You don't know what's on the other side of that door. And finally, somebody does come in the back door. And it's one of the Lee County deputies who does a sweep of the house. And he sweeps every room in the house. And I'm like, is he still out there? And he said they didn't know where Randy was at. You can't describe the absolute and utter terror that you're going through because it's nothing like you've ever experienced. It's nothing like you see on television. It's 1 million times worse.
This was the image that I saw when I entered the residence. Lying on the kitchen floor is Sylvia. She's lying in a pool of blood. And on top of her, across her body, is her father, Mr. James Mitchell. He was shot in the back of the head. Your first thought is, looks like he went over to check on her, then he was shot in the head. As we proceeded down the hallway to the bedroom, the elder, Miss Evelyn, was shot in the head. It appears that she had gotten up out of bed. Maybe she heard something. She fell on the floor where he shot her, beside the bed. A lot of times I prepare for the worst. Well, in this case, it was the worst. I had met Miss Sylvia Reeves at a family event for the first time, probably a year prior to her death. It's a sickening feeling, especially when it's someone you've met before. It's a little more disheartening, I guess. It doesn't take away from the other victims, the other homicides of work. It's just different. It's like, oh God, why did this happen to these people? It's senseless, cruel that someone would do this to them. And at that point, we decide we need more help. We have agents come over from Little Rock to assist us at the crime scene. They were sending officers by the suspect's parents' home to see if the vehicle was there. They were checking local truck stops along the interstate. He could be anywhere at this point. He was a danger to the public. I was afraid that Travis would not make it. It appeared he went through hell. He's lucky if he survives this. There's a need of urgency because you've got to get this guy before something else happens.
Hello?
Hi, Travis.
Hey, Lisa. Are you okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay.
I really wish I could have been there with you, but, I got reasons why I didn't, but it breaks my heart that you did that by yourself. But I know what kind of courage it took to talk about everything that happened. I just want you to know I was with you in spirit, and I've been thinking about you. I am so beyond words, just proud of you.
Well, I know, and thank you, honey. And I love you, and I will talk to you later.
I love you too.
All right.
Take care, baby.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Travis had a shattered femur. He had a hole in his left shoulder. He was shot in both arms. He was shot spine, neck, shoulder. And it just makes me want to hug him and take it all away from him. I would so wish I could take his pain and his grief. He's a hero. He's one that keeps fighting no matter what. And, I love him so much. I'd given my statement to an Arkansas State Police investigator. After my statement was done, he came over and sat down on the coffee table in front of me and, just told me they were all dead. I kept telling him I wanted to see my mama and I wanted to see, where's my grandparents. I wanted to go over there and at least see them, but they were like, no, you don't need to do that. This is a very active situation. I've got police around me. After he murdered my mom and my grandparents and shot my brother 10 times, I found out that an officer had pulled up and that Randy was loading an AK-47 and that he had shot at the deputy till the deputy left. And then Randy realizes, I guess, hey, the police are coming, and he loads his guns back in his vehicle and he takes off. I was worried that Randy was going to come and kill me. They were asking me, do I know where he might go? And I had no clue. They asked me, do you think he'll go commit suicide? I said, oh no, he's not that type of individual. So I really had no clue where he would go.
A manhunt is on in East Arkansas as authorities search for a suspect wanted for a triple murder.
46-year-old Gordon Randall Guatney is said to be armed and dangerous.
We knew that the general public was in danger. He would stop at nothing to get away. Getting the information from Lisa was vital, so we know what we're dealing with, who we're dealing with, and where to proceed next. We get a little background, his vehicle information, description, what he was wearing, possible locations he may be going to. Randy was former military. He had been working for a company in Memphis as a security guard. There was a dozen shell casings from the rifle in the driveway of the Mitchell Reeves residence. And there was approximately 18 shell casings of the rifle in Travis Reeves' yard. My worst fear and anticipation was that he was going to get in a shootout with a law enforcement officer, and that officer was going to be outgunned. It's a 2-story home. So when you make entry, you don't know what you're going to be met with, especially at a staircase. When you go up a staircase, if he's in there, he could just shoot downward at you, like a sitting duck. We knew if he had that rifle, it would go through us like a hot knife through butter. We just cleared room by room, making sure there's no threat in each room. Once we cleared the whole house, downstairs, upstairs, and attic, we knew that he was not there. While at the house, we discovered various firearms, pistols, rifles, lots of ammunition of various calibers, body armor. The weapons that we found were not consistent with what he used at the crime scene, so we realized he was still armed with at least 2 different types of weapons. And it was discovered that he had lost his job. And a lot of people who even knew him had no clue that all this had happened to him. And so that was probably creating a financial hardship for him. It sounds like his life was spiraling downhill. Well, at that point, the sheriff's department and the state police had already put a bolo, be on the lookout for him with his vehicle description and tag number and his information. No one really knew where he was headed to. Once the bank opened, we put an alert on his ATM card, and I had to track his phone. But at least 3 hours have gone by, and it could be anywhere in those 3 hours. It's just a stroke of luck if someone sees him on the road or law enforcement sees him. And we absolutely needed to get him before he killed someone else or harmed someone else in any way.
It's one of the most horrific homicides to have ever happened near the small town of Palestine, Arkansas.
We don't know what Randy Gwathney was thinking. We don't know who is going after next, if anybody. Was he just trying to flee, hide out? Was he going to go to his own parents' house and do something to them? He was a step ahead of law enforcement. And at that point, we could do nothing else but wait as far as locating him. We didn't know how it would end. There was a strong chance that he would shoot it out with law enforcement before he was apprehended. And after 6 p.m., I received a call from our local sheriff, and he said that Gwathney had used his debit card at Laredo, Texas. And about 40 minutes later, a dispatcher from Laredo Police Department says, "Mr. Middleton, we have him." And my first fear was, was there a shootout? And I asked her that, and she says, "No, we have him in custody." After reading his rights to him, he basically stated he didn't want to make a statement without a lawyer present. The AK-47 was in his truck, 5 magazines, 4 which I recall was loaded. His pistol was on him, and he had additional .40 caliber ammo inside the truck. I think a camo jacket and a map of Laredo and other road maps. I don't know if he went there with the intent to kill, but it sure looks like it.
When I found out he was arrested in Texas, it was a huge relief. It was an absolute load off of my shoulders. The devil in disguise right there. He's an absolute murderer. Because there was no remorse.
I didn't mean to hurt anybody.
Gwathney doesn't deny pulling the trigger,
but he says he doesn't remember the shooting spree.
I still love my wife, and I love the family. I don't think I'll ever be able to look them in the eye ever again.
From what I understand, his defense, according to his lawyer, it was a combination of PTSD that he had allegedly suffered while he was in the military and some medications a doctor had put him on. But I don't believe it. He knew full well what he did, and that was wrong. The amount of evil I saw that had happened in this house, I've never seen before. One could wonder, was he doing it to hurt Lisa by killing her mother and grandparents? Or was he doing it just out of pure rage and meanness and evil? We would like to know his motivation, why he really did what he did. We may never know that.
I've spent 15 years trying to figure out why on earth this man would have done what he done. I never did anything to him. Why didn't he just come in and kill me? Why couldn't he have murdered me, not them? But I think he wanted me to suffer. He wanted me to watch him kill everybody that I loved and what meant the most to me. That's exactly what he wanted. Oh goodness, one of the greatest days of my life. The divorce that was years in the making. We finally got a divorce. Thank you, Jesus. He's an evil man, and that was the last thing he could hold over me was his signature to these divorce papers. It was his last bit of control over me. And so he knew once he signed these divorce papers, it was done. So that's all I got to say about that. He had to really learn how to walk again. He had to go through rehabilitation for 9 months. He's also got these deep emotional scars that he didn't save his mama. He didn't save his elderly grandparents. You know, my brother thought he could do this show, but he couldn't because it's so much emotional to deal with. And by the grace of God is that boy alive. And I thank God every day that he was saved. And you know, this was just a horrible, horrible thing that never had to happen. The ripple effects of murder go out a long way.